Hello everybody and welcome to another All-CAW Wrestling podcast type thing. I am your host, the Big Daddy D, and I'm joined here at the podcasting table by Little Natty Noo.
Hello, my name is Steven.
No, it's not, it's Little Natty Noo. So, another week, another podcast. Last week we took a look at WrestleMania 1 and the Wrestling Classic on the WWE Network. What have you watched on the network since then, Little Natty Noo?
I've watched Money in the Bank. I've watched...
Which one?
2014.
Oh, last year's, right, okay, yes.
And I've watched TLC 2014 and WrestleMania 30.
So you were catching up on a lot of stuff from last year. Alright, fair enough. I've been watching NXT. Finn Balor versus Hideo Itami was fantastic. Really looking forward to seeing Finn Balor versus Adrian Neville. Not to mention Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens at the next TakeOver event. I've been watching some more of the Monday Night War documentaries. And just the other night I was watching trying to sort of make my way through the sheer batshit insane environment that was WCW in 1996 before the NWO took over. In regards to the triple-decker Doomsday cage match at Uncensored 1996, where it was Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, the Mega Powers. Why Vince didn't get that name copyrighted, I've no idea. Up against about 8 other blokes, including Zeus from No Holds Barred, and the bloke who played Bane in Batman and Robin. And despite the fact that Michael Buff has paid a ridiculous amount of money to do the announcing for the main events, you know, including his catchphrase, "Let's get ready to rumble!" Which I should mention he also said during a speech at his own son's wedding. He actually said during a speech at his son's wedding, "Let's get ready to rumble." Because Michael Buffer is a twat. But yes, I'm sort of digressing here. Despite the fact that he was paid absolutely ridiculous amounts of money to sort of announce WCW's main event, he would often cock up the names. As here, not once but twice, he refers to Hogan and Savage's team as the Mega Force, rather than the Mega Powers. And at one point, he actually called Bret Hart as Bret the Hitman Clark. Yeah, despite the fact that Bret Hart at the time was one of the biggest superstars in all of wrestling, and he had hearts on his wrestling attire. Michael Buffer, you are officially an idiot. But a rich idiot. So, once again, we're going to hop into our time machine, or just go on the WWE Network, to take a look at the World Wrestling Federation of yesteryear. Now, as mentioned before in our last podcast, we visited 1985, and we did a retrospective look over both WrestleMania 1 and the Wrestling Classic. Today we're off to the WWE pay-per-view section of 1986, and although we won't be bothering with the big event that's called The Big Event, funnily enough, we will be taking a look at WrestleMania 2, which we've also been watching this week. If you don't know what the big event was, basically it was just an outdoor event filmed with cameras that appeared to have Vaseline smeared over the lens. Following the success of the original WrestleMania, Vince McMahon realised he was onto something big, and so it was no surprise when the company announced that this would become an annual event. But what was a surprise was that WrestleMania 2 would be held at not one, but 3 separate venues on the same night. Following this, it came as no surprise that they never attempted to do anything like this again. Yeah, it took WWF a couple of years before they got the format of this WrestleMania thing just right. So, WrestleMania 2 would take place at venues in New York, Chicago and Los Angeles, giving 3 different crowds the chance to see 3 really bad wrestling cards, as opposed to just the one. This led to the roster being split 3 ways, along with 3 separate commentating teams. So we kick things off in New York with Vince McMahon and Susan St. James calling the action.
Who?
Well, apparently she was on some TV show called Katie and Ali, but it probably has more to do with the fact that she was married to NBC president at the time and McMahon supporter Dick Ebersol. No doubt Dick called in a favour that Vince owed and he got his missus on the show. Thank goodness that Vince would learn from this that using your position of power to force family members and their spouses on WWF television is bad for business.
Hang on a minute.
Anyway, Ray Charles is on hand to sing America the Beautiful, complete with a permanent shit-eating grin on his face, which seems to be saying, hey, I may be blind, but at least that means I don't have to watch Paul Orndorff versus Don Muraco. Now those two Now, those two were actually pretty good back in their day, so you would have thought that a match between them would be worth watching.
But you thought wrong.
Indeed, because apparently this match seemed to be getting contested over who applies the most rest holds per out. It was so bad that even Randy Orton would be shaking his head.
Whilst applying the rest hold.
They didn't even put over the fact that both of the men used the pile driver as a finisher. Anyway, after a boring 4 minutes, the two of them end up on the outside where they both end up getting counted out. Boring. However, that isn't the worst part about this match, is it? Nope. You see, Ray Charles' blindness may have prevented him from watching this crap, but unfortunately his perfectly functioning eardrums still ended up suffering the same fate as the rest of us, which is listening to the sheer, unbridled awfulness that is Susan St. James commentating. This includes her infamous catchphrase. Do you remember what it was? Well, here's a voice clip to remind you.
Uh-oh. What was that?
Uh-oh.
Yep, it's right up there with Jim Ross's,
My God!
Joey Styles's,
Oh my God!
Jerry Lawler's,
Puppies!
and even Vince McMahon's own.
What a maneuver!
I don't think Michael Cole's got a catchphrase, has he?
It's only $9.99.
That's the one. Yes, he just tells you how to download the app. In fact, Susan proceeds to bombard us with about 60 uh-ohs in the space of about 10 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Next up, we get the Intercontinental title match between champion Macho Man Randy Savage and challenger George the Animal Steele. I should mention that the sheer sight of George, my wife refused to watch this show any further. And it must have been bad because she used to watch A-Train back in the day when he was all, he had all the baby oil on him. She could cope just about with watching that, but she couldn't cope with watching George.
Oh, George.
Hairy Shrek. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned
Oh, George.
Oh, George. We'll come on to that in a moment. Now, just a bit of backtracking first of all. Since WrestleMania 1, Tito Santana won the Intercontinental title back from Greg Valentine, and he was still the champion during the Wrestling Classic. But a month before WrestleMania 2, Savage won the belt, or stole the belt as far as Gorilla Monsoon was concerned, from Tito. So now Savage is coming into WrestleMania 2 as the champ. Now it's during this match that Susan St. James displays her second most annoying catchphrase of the evening.
George.
Oh, George.
As during this match, in between about 40 uh-ohs,
Uh-oh.
Susan decides to yell out George's name in a really annoying, nagging housewife kind of a way, like she's telling him off.
George.
Whilst not the classic match that Savage would have with Steamboat a year later, this was still passable, with Randy using every dirty trick in the book, including throwing stuff at George. And George responds to this by eating the turnbuckles for some bizarre reason. Savage wins this match by using the same, scooping his opponent's legs in the corner and pinning them with his own feet on the ropes for leverage tactic that he used to pin Ivan Putski at the Wrestling Classic. Naughty, naughty man. And if one match involving a guy called George wasn't turn off,
George.
then we have another one.
Oh, my God.
This time we have George Wells, who is pretty much a jobber at this point. He's like the Special Delivery Jones of WrestleMania 2. And he's going up against relative newcomer Jake the Snake Roberts. This was pretty much a jobber match, as Jake made quick work of George, putting him down with the DDT, which we learnt on Tuesday Night Titan stands for Damien's Dinner Time. The match climaxed in Jake pulling out his big long snake and draping it over George's face, leading to a memorable shot of Mr. Wells spewing white stuff out of his mouth.
Phrasing.
Yeah, maybe climaxed is a poor choice of words there, says Little Daddy E over in the corner, who's underneath a blanket. Backstage, Roddy Piper has been interviewed about his boxing match with Mr. T, and vows that if T can knock him out, he will quit wrestling, he will quit boxing, and he'll even quit dating girls, although he'll still keep Bob Orton around. Which probably explains why he's dressed as a member of the Village People. Piper also says that he will paint himself black and shave his head to look like an Indian if he loses.
Racist.
So yeah, it's no wonder the WWE Network has got those disclaimer messages at the start of these pay-per-views. Funnily enough, Piper did paint himself half black a few years later at a WrestleMania, but that's a story for another time. Mr. T, in the meantime, has got Smoking Joe Frazier in his corner, as well as the Haiti Kid, who looks like a mini-me Mr. T, thanks to Piper giving him an unwanted haircut on Piper's pit. We saw that on the network as well, didn't we? Little Haitian kid, Haiti Kid, sorry. Getting an unwanted haircut from Mr. Piper. Frazier's also wearing a kilt like Piper's. Why? I've no idea.
No, he was wearing tartan shorts.
No, he was wearing a kilt. He was wearing a tartan kilt just like Piper. Which doesn't make any sense because Piper was Mr. T's opponent, but whatever. And of course, because this is the main event for the New York show, here come the celebrities. First up, we've got this guy called Herb, who was the Burger King's mascot before, well, the Burger King. Two of the judges for this match were basketball player Darryl Dawkins and one G. Gordon Liddy, best known for his part in the Watergate break-in. What on earth would Vince McMahon have in common with a shady character that refuses to ever really admit any wrongdoing in a scandal?
Wait a minute.
Never mind. In a match that could be a nomination for Worst WrestleMania Match Ever, Piper and T flop about all over the ring for about 4 rounds of good old fake boxing, before Piper eventually says, "Bugger this," and body slams Mr. T in the middle of the ring, which earns him a disqualification. Apparently, body slams are illegal in boxing.
Who would have thought that?
And that's it from New York. Still, it could have been worse. At least we didn't get Susan St. James and Art Donovan on the same commentating team. Can you imagine the horror?
How much does that guy weigh?
Uh-oh.
How much does this guy weigh?
Uh-oh.
So it's over to Chicago, where your commentating team are Gorilla Monsoon, Mean Gene Ogaden, and Kathy Lee Crosby, who was known for co-hosting a TV show back in the day called That's Incredible, where people would earn their 15 minutes of fame by solving a Rubik's Cube in under 14 seconds, getting launched out of cannons, and stuffing themselves inside shoeboxes. Yes, really. It sounds like Britain's Got Talent to me, only even more shit. Our first matchup from Chicago just shows how far the quality of the ladies division has dropped since last year's Mania. And yes, I can appreciate that isn't saying much. With Wendy Rich to gone from the company, courtesy of the original Screwjob finish, the fabulous Moona is now your ladies champion, despite looking well past her prime. Tonight she's facing off against Velvet McIntyre,
Who apparently can't afford shoes.
The whole thing is basically another squash match, with Moolah pinning Velvet after she misses a top rope splash.
Which also causes her boobs to pop out.
Yes, indeed, but trust me, it isn't a pretty sight. And just in case the number of squash matches on this event isn't enough to convince you that this is the 80s, next up we've got some good old-fashioned commie bashing, as Nikolai Volkov faces off against...
Rambo! Corporal Kirchner.
Yep, and this is the first, and so far last, flag match in WrestleMania history. The whole thing lasts about 2 minutes, with classy Freddie Blassie once again throwing in his cane for Volkov to use. But instead of Volkov catching it, Kirchner catches it instead, and levels Volkov with the cane and gets the pin!
For America! Yeah!
Thank you for joining us, Little Natty. Sometime after this, Kirchner went over to Japan and traded in his flag for a chainsaw to reinvent himself as Leatherface.
Wait, what?
Wow, Vietnam must have been tough on this guy. By the way, we're halfway through the card in Chicago already, which makes for about 4 minutes worth of wrestling so far.
Talk about value for money.
So next we've got ourselves a 20-man battle royal featuring WWF wrestlers and NFL players together in one big sweaty match.
This doesn't sound like a good idea.
Your celebrities acting as outside referees for this match are Ed, Too Tall Jones, and Dick, Stop Laughing at My Name, Butkus.
Butkus.
The wrestlers included are...
Andre the Giant. Haku, the Heart Foundation, Bruno Sammartino,
thankfully leaving David at home this year.
the Iron Sheik, the Killer Bees,
Watch your ass be, Brian Blair.
Tony Atlas, Hillbilly, is that Bray Wyatt's dad's gym?
Ted is that Rusev's dad, City. Big John Studd.
Pedro Mora.
Pedro Moles. And Danny Spivey, who seemingly doesn't realise that only one tall, heavily tanned, yellow trunks-wearing blonde bloke is allowed to get over in this company. Silly Danny. Not being an American football fan, I don't really know who some of the NFL guys are. Although I do recognise Bill Fralick. From that time he tried to body slam Yokozuna on the US Intrepid. But that's a story for another time. And of course there's WWE Hall of Famer William the Refrigerator Perry.
Refrigerator.
Yes, I imagine that he got his nickname because, like a fridge, he looks like he's literally stuffed entirely with food and beer. Although if you saw him at the Hall of Fame, he looks like he's upgraded to one of those industrial-sized freezers by now. Amazing that this guy got himself in the Hall of Fame just from taking one single bump in this match. Yet there's guys who main evented WrestleMania that still aren't inducted in this thing. Anyway, that one bump he takes is probably the most memorable part of the match, when Big John Studd eliminates him from the match, leading Perry to offer a handshake to Studd and to yank him out in turn. Of course, wrestling logic would ask why the biggest heel in the match would shake a babyface's hand after chucking him out of the Battle Royal in the first place, but I digress.
It doesn't make any sense.
Your final four are Andre, both members of the Hart Foundation, and someone who appears to be the bloke from the 118 commercials. The Harts dispose of the 118 guy along with his porn star moustache, and then double team Andre, who single-handedly eliminates them both to win the match, with Jim Neidhart's elimination being one of the most comical bumps in WrestleMania history, when he literally launches himself over the top rope after brushing himself against Andre's raised boot. Finally we come to Chicago's main event, as the Dream Team defends the Tag Team Championship against the British Bulldogs. If you wanted to see the best match that Brutus Beefcake has ever been in, then this is it. So since last year's WrestleMania, Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine have joined forces to form a tag team called the Dream Team, and they're now the Tag Team Champions. And they're up against Britain's own, the British Bulldogs, which consists of the Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith. And for some reason, the Bulldogs have got Ozzy Osbourne in their corner, wearing a garish pink suit. I can only imagine the conversation he'd had with his wife, Sharon, beforehand. Sharon! What are we wearing a pink suit for? I'm Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of fucking Darkness! Fuck! Sharon!
Have you made me packed lunch? Did you put a bat in it? Thanks.
I'm sure that Ozzy and the Bulldogs have got a lot in common. But I'm informed by our legal team that the only thing I can mention is that they both live in the United Kingdom. And that's not all, because the Where's the Beef lady is here as the guest timekeeper. She was the mascot for Wendy's, in case you were wondering. Okay. Where's the beef? For the advert, I've not seen the advert myself, but I'm assuming that she bites into one burger, you know, a leading competitor's brand burger, and it's like, there's no beef in this, where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
And then she tried Wendy's burger, and it's like, oh yes, there's beef in this, or words to that effect anyway.
I don't understand.
Yeah. Isn't that funny that Vince managed to get the mascots for both Burger King and Wendy's for WrestleMania 2?
Why did we put them in the match?
Put them in a match, yes. Burger King's Herb versus Wendy's Where's the Beef Lady, with Ronald McDonald doing a run-in and hitting them both with steel chairs. Lead to a freeway dance the year later at WrestleMania 3.
Then Colonel Sanders comes in and kills everyone with chicken. Yay!
With frozen chicken legs to the skull. Book it, Vince! So the Bulldogs take control for most of this match until Valentine and Beefcake are able to isolate Davey Boy in the corner, where they constantly double-team him. Luckily, Davey Boy has the foresight to Irish whip Valentine straight into Dynamite's head on the ring apron.
Oh, that sounds safe.
Yeah.
Wait, so he's getting double-teamed in the corner? Phrasing.
Don't start. Valentine is knocked out. Dynamite's laid out on the arena floor, where he stays for a while. Valentine's obviously knocked out because Dynamite's got a head that seems to be made out of concrete. Probably from all the muscle growth hormones that he was taking, which now makes Dynamite's head the size of a Sport Cortina. And Davey Boy picks up the pinfall and the titles for his team. Ozzy Osbourne then comes into the ring and celebrates, although from the wild look on his face, it's lucky that the Bulldogs didn't have their mascot Matilda at this point, because Ozzy would have probably eaten her. And finally, we're off to Los Angeles for the commentating team of Lord Alfred Hayes, Jesse the Body Ventura, and Elvira, look at that body, Mistress of the Dark. Our opening contest in Los Angeles is Hercules Hernandez versus Ricky Steamboat. This would have been early in Herc's stint, as he's decked out in the finest gladiator apparel that he could get from the pound shop. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough cash left over to visit a decent fucking barber to take care of his foot-long afro, or to get more than 15 minutes in a tanning bed, as his upper body is bright red, but his legs are as pale as Sheamus. Steamboat still manages to have a decent match with Herc, finishing him off with a flying body press. Blimey, Hercules can perform the 12 labours, but he can't catch one flying Hawaiian Bruce Lee imitator? It wasn't much of a match, but it was a 5-star classic compared to the next one. Uncle Elmer versus adorable Adrian Adonis.
Oh my god.
You remember this one, don't you?
Yes.
Much as you've tried to forget it.
Ning, 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 ling, ning, ning, ning,
Now,
ning, ning.
since we last saw Adonis on the Wrestling Classic, McMahon has been very unhappy about Adonis, mainly because of the excessive amount of weight that he's been piling on. So he decided to turn him gay as punishment.
Wait, what?
So between this and Roddy Piper's comments, you know, about shaving his head to look like an Indian, painting himself black, etc., this particular WrestleMania hasn't exactly been politically correct.
Not really.
So Vince wasn't happy with adorable Adrian, so he made him change his gimmick to become a drag queen, because apparently wearing the same little leather outfit as that guy from the Village People wasn't gay enough. Regardless, you can say what you want about Adonis, but he was one heck of a worker, as he bumped around like crazy to try and make Elmo look good in this match. Of course, it doesn't help when Elmo himself falls over after he's thrown a punch.
Are you actually kidding me?
Elmer throws the punch, and Elmer falls over.
I don't... Did this guy actually learn how to wrestle?
Eventually, Elmer passes out or dies or something, so Adonis just jumps right on top of him and gets the pin.
Phrasing.
But I'm sure Elmer doesn't mind, because, you know, I've seen Deliverance. Those guys get a little funny when there ain't no women folk around. Yeehaw! Just going back to Adrian Adonis, isn't it funny that back in the day, WWE was the only company that could punish you by making you turn gay? So next up, we've got tag team action as Tito Santana and the Junkyard Dog take on the Funk Brothers, Terry and Dory Jr. Although Dory is called Hoss Funk here for some bizarre reason. Although this is a very entertaining match, with JYD pounding Terry's head into the turnbuckles about 50 times, Elvira seems to be more interested in the prospect of seeing some penises.
Well, I hope they're wearing strong trunks because they keep grabbing them by those trunks. I hope they don't break away.
Well, if they break away, you'll get a real show out.
Woo, that's right. That's what I came here for.
JYD makes the mistake of going after Jimmy Hart on the apron, like he did last year, as Terry manages to get hold of Hart's megaphone and clonk the dog over the head with it to get the pin. Animal cruelty!
Oh no! Golly RSPCA.
And guess what? Elvira's at it again during the main event of the evening, as King Kong Bundy begins tearing off the protective tape around Hulk Hogan's ribs, causing her to ask if Bundy's trying to take Hogan's clothes off. Damn, she was in a saucy mood during WrestleMania 2. Isn't it just as well that Burger King's mascot, Herb, was at the New York show and not in LA? Otherwise, she might have been asking to see his Whopper.
Oh, God.
So yeah, we do have celebrities on hand again to deal with such difficult jobs as the timekeeping, like anyone gives a shit about that, and of course opening the cage door about 3 effing times. At this point, I don't even care who the celebrities are. So yep, Hogan and Bundy are going at it inside a steel cage for the WWF title, and for Hogan getting revenge on Bundy for busting his ribs at Saturday night's main event a month previous to this. Now this was another match that you could play through during WWE 2K14's 30 Years of WrestleMania mode. Little Natty Noo.
Yes, I know. I just played it now. Nah.
We've had to actually play through 30 Years of WrestleMania on 2K14
Because someone turned off the game while it was saving, so the data was corrupted.
I blame that Mr. Clean, to be honest with you.
Damn you, Mr. Clean!
So yeah, basically everyone that we unlocked on 30 Years of WrestleMania are gone. All those created wrestlers, arenas and belts are gone. So
Everyone is now dead.
so we've had to start again. But don't worry, All-CAW Wrestling fans. It's not going to cause any problems to All-CAW Wrestling because we've taped a few matches in advance already. Yay!
Yay!
Foresight. Not Forsyth, that's nice to see you.
Nice.
Anyway, where was that? Anyway, so the match in WWE 2K14 can be quite exciting, can't it? The match in real life was a different matter altogether, with endless punching and kicking and punching and kicking and punching and kicking and eye rakes and gouges and heads going into cages and stuff like that. And it turns out to be just a typical Hulk Hogan match, really. You probably know how this goes already. Bundy hits his avalanche finisher. Bear in mind that this was the move that broke Hogan's ribs in the first place. Hogan suddenly decides, I'm not selling anymore, brother! So he decides to Hulk up, punch, punch, power slam, big boot, leg drop, and then Hogan begins to climb out of the cage rather than going through the door. I ain't using the door, brother! Oh, and Bobby Heenan gets the shit kicked out of him afterwards. You know, just because.
Just because why not?
Because why not? So yeah, Hogan wins. And that is it for WrestleMania 2. It wasn't a very pretty sight. In fact, if you were to compile them up, the worst WrestleManias together, then this one would be near the top. I think it's safe to say that Mania still hasn't found its niche yet, and a lot of the matches really meant nothing. But nevertheless, there were still some decent matches on the card. What was your favourite match on the card, Little Natty Noo?
Probably the steel cage match.
You actually thought the steel cage match? I suppose back in the day when I watched it, I did find it was exciting, but then again, I didn't know about such things as work rate and being a good worker and stuff like that. These days, as more of a sort of a wrestling mark, I'd probably say that my favourite match of the night was the British Bulldogs versus the Dream Team. And yes, this will be the only time that Brutus Beefcake will get a match of the night vote for him, literally. That and the Bulldogs were like one of the best tag teams of their generation. What about you, Little Daddy? What was your favourite match of WrestleMania 2? I'm just looking at your notes here. Oh, you've wrote match of the night for Little Daddy's notes. He's just wrote no. He's just wrote no in capitals and about 16 exclamation marks. Fair enough.
Yep.
Right, and that is it for WrestleMania 2. No doubt at some point we will take a look at WrestleMania 3 as well, and maybe some of the other pay-per-views on the WWE Network. So yeah, in conclusion, WrestleMania 2 still showed that the WWE needed to get some fine-tuning and some twerking, not that type of twerking that Miley Cyrus does, in order to get this whole WrestleMania thing working properly. So, we will take a look at WrestleMania 3 and see if they manage to improve things for that. But until next time, I'm the Big Daddy D.
And the Little Natty Noo.
Never Little Daddy Air.
Are you sure?
No. Who am I? What is this place?
And we're signing out for another episode of the All-CAW Wrestling podcast video type thing show. Bye!
Who are you? Why am I here?
Why are you dressed as a giant carrot?
Reasons.